But if you're convinced that money is a scarce resource or a scarce energy, it's going to be very hard for you to attract it into your life.
Or, hey girl, like, it's time to get off the couch. Like, you set this intention towards your higher self, and you're not doing anything about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, next level Mastermind. Today, for week number 35, we are going to talk to you about the law of attraction. Again, in our little preamble there, we talked about, a little bit of a outline of what we're going to talk about today. But I think a lot of people have a misconception of what the law of attraction is. They think like, okay, if I just think of something, it's going to happen automatically. Things are just going to come to me. Yes, in some way, but also one of the things I want to start with and reiterate throughout this entire process, and we talked about this in the Gina Mastermind last week, action is unreasonably important. It's always going to be important. So just because we're not necessarily like really leaning on you taking action is always going to be one of the most important things. It's definitely going to help you really ignite the power of the law of attraction.
Also, on this Mastermind, a lot of these concepts are going to be not only very deep and challenging to fully comprehend, but a lot of this is built on whether or not you've been a listener of the show for a while. So if you are new, sort of bear with us, and we'll try to provide as much context as we can. But this is different things that we've learned along the journey that we believe all apply to the law of attraction. And we've got, 10 up there?
10. No bonuses. We're going to have to come up with bonuses on the fly.
We will.
Okay. All right. So the number one thing I want to start with is all of this is dependent on you living in your truth. Okay. So the law of attraction, basically, my understanding and the way that I use it is the universe. Okay, when you decide and you set a goal and you focus on that goal for long enough, the universe conspires to help you accomplish it. It puts the people in your life that you need to meet. It puts you at the places that you need to. It's like intuition, right? Your intuition is saying, I need to do this. Why? Because from our understanding and what we're talking about tonight, the law of attraction needs that to happen for you to be successful. But you have to live in your truth. So what does that mean? That means that you have to be honest about what you want out of life. You have to live in integrity with yourself, right? A lot of people are afraid to say what they really want, so they continue to get what they're afraid of. You have to admit what you really want. So you'll hear us, Alan and I say this so many times. We've said it on every podcast. We want to have the most successful podcast of all time in terms of positively impacting people, okay? That's out there. Like you guys have heard it a million times, right? When I write that in my notebook in the morning, I'm trying to connect with that every single day. So you have to live in your truth, because if you don't, a lot of these things aren't going to happen. So that is like from my perspective, that's probably one of the most important things, because if you don't start the right way, it's really hard to finish the right way.
So I think the next segue here is what we refer to as reverse PMES. So if you've ever heard us talk about the PMES system, I'll start there. So what we believe is the human condition. We believe there are 4 main facets. And again, if you have a notebook and pen and you aren't driving, listening to this after, I highly recommend you write this down. So at the very top, you put P equals physical, M equals mental, E equals emotional, S equals spiritual. Now, if you've heard this before, don't shut off, because there's going to be more. And again, iteration is important. So that's the PMES system. We believe that the facets of the human condition are physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Okay? Now, S equals spiritual. Put an arrow next to that and put imagination. E equals emotional. Put an arrow and equals feeling. M equals mental. Put an arrow and then put strategy. And then P equals action, physical, and then an arrow with action, okay? So the best way that I can describe what the reverse PMES system is there's a story that I gave once at Mass Maritime. I basically said manifestation and the purple elephant. Now, what does that mean? Okay, so I'm going to close my eyes right now, and I'm going to imagine in my mind's eye, in the spiritual world, I'm going to imagine a purple elephant with a cowboy hat on and a double-barrel shotgun, okay? Now, if you're visualizing that in your imagination, it's different than mine is. Mine is my unique flavor, my unique version of that. Then I'm going to emotionalize it and say, okay, this is my purple elephant. Okay, I'm going to strategize about how to create that. Okay, I could get Play-Doh and I could create that. I could get crayons and markers. I can draw it. Okay, now I'm going to after the strategy piece, I need to take action. Okay, what is the action that I need to take? Okay, I got to go buy colored pencils, and then I got to get some paper and I got to draw it out. I took something that only existed in the spiritual world and I manifested it into the physical world. Now, have you ever heard of Barney? Whoever created Barney at one point imagined a purple dinosaur, just like we all did with a purple elephant. Everything around us right now at one point existed in someone's imagination, if it's man-made. Okay, we are creative beings. So when you hear about manifestation or the law of attraction, what it starts with, and what Kevin meant by living in your truth, is like, what do you see in your own imagination? At one point, J.K. Rowling, Kevin talked about this earlier, J.K. Rowling imagined wizards and all of what we now know as Harry Potter. We all get to enjoy Harry Potter. I love those movies. I love those books. Like, genuinely, we all enjoy that because that once at one point existed in her imagination. And then she put pen to paper, aka action, and made that real. We all have that capability. I just don't know if we're harnessing it as intentionally as we could.
And if you think about it, so like Alan just said, you have PMES. When you reverse that, you're taking something from a thought to a reality. If you have trouble taking something from your imagination and making it real, there's probably a broken link in the chain somewhere. So either your S, your spiritual, your imagination, your belief isn't very strong, so you don't even believe enough to emotionalize it. You haven't emotionalized it, right? When you hear, me talk about Taryn or Alan talk about Emilia, that's there's a reason we go there, because that's what we emotionalize things. When you emotionalize something, you're far more likely to take action. You're far more likely to continue when it's tough. Again, a lot of this stuff is going to be based on your action. And I'm going to keep reiterating that. So after you emotionalize it, you have to figure out, what is the strategy I need to take? Maybe you haven't learned enough yet about the thing that you're trying to bring into reality, right? Maybe I always use the example of podcasts because that's our expertise. Maybe you don't know what mics to get. Maybe you don't know what camera to get, how to use Zoom, right? Your M, your strategy isn't there yet, so you can't bring it into existence yet, okay? And then P, taking action. You can have all the answers, you can have all the lessons, you can have all the connections, you can have everything set up, but if you don't take action, and this is where a lot of people get stuck, right? Think about it this way. How do you manifest your dream body? Well, you visualize what your dream body is. You emotionalize, wow, it would be really amazing for me to fit into that bikini that I fit into 15 years ago, or to have a six-pack abs when I show up at the beach, okay? Strategize it. Well, I bought this guide, I know how to diet, I know how to do all these things. All of that stuff isn't going to get you the body unless you take action. So that's why I believe so much in the importance of taking action.
Fire.
You dig?
Yeah.
Which one should I do?
I think it's your choice, brother.
It's my choice. Okay, so this is something that I have talked about a lot. I don't know that I've ever really explained it as well as I could, so I'm going to try to do that today.
There's going to be a lot of that on this one.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot. So I have my journal right here. So every day when I journal, and I always tell my clients, I don't know how many clients of mine are in here, but I always tell my clients, I want you to sit down, and when you write out what you're grateful for, I want you to write out what you're grateful for that you have and what you're grateful for that you're going to get in the future. Okay, this is called quantum journaling. So what you're doing is you're imagining, you're using your imagination, you're using your S, you're visualizing what you want out of your future. Okay, so every day I write down next level university stadium tours. Right, I visualize Alan and I walking onto the stage, and me cracking a joke as the first thing, and everybody having a huge audience. I imagine that. Every single day I write that down. Okay, one of the things I write down is I am pursuing my potential as the best husband to Taryn and father to our children. We're not married yet and we don't have children yet, but I am writing that down every single day. I want to remain crystal clear on what I want out of my future, and that's going to connect to some other things here too. But imagine if you started doing that. You want stuff in your future that you don't currently have. Don't create resistance by saying you can't get it. You can create connection by just saying, just write it down. It's going to feel weird as hell at first, I promise. But I've been doing it now every day Well, I've missed some days, but almost every day for probably the last year and a half. And I've never felt as connected to my purpose, to the mission, to the goals, to the results. I've never felt as connected as I do now.
So I don't know if you've ever heard me talk about my purpose macro flashcard, but basically it used to be every day. Now it's weekly. I check in with my critical numbers, and at the very top left of the flashcard, it's actually in my pocket right now, is a star. That's my true north. And it says, the Next Level University podcast has at least 5 million listens in 2020. It used to say that. Now it says the Next Level University podcast has at least 50 million listens in 2021. And then I have a little countdown on the tail end, and then I go through, all the different I am prayers. A lot of people say that the words I am is the most powerful first 2 words there are. I am abundant. I am wealthy. I am a podcaster. And so I have a few I am statements as well that I write every week, what used to be every single day as well. And so when you're writing something down, what you're really doing with this quantum journaling that Kevin just mentioned is you're programming your subconscious mind, because your central nervous system is attached to your crocodile brain, your mammalian brain, and your prefrontal cortex. And I'm not going to get into all of that, but when you're writing something, it is literally programming you. It's programming you with this intention. So now you're going to have sort of an emotional guidance system. If you've been writing, think about this, just to make it practical. If you've been writing every single day that I intend to be a millionaire by age 35, and you're 34, and you're sitting on the couch watching Netflix, your emotional guidance system, your intuition is going to be like, hey, man, or hey, girl, like, it's time to get off the couch. Like, you set this intention towards your higher self, and you're not doing anything about it. I would argue one of the reasons people don't do quantum journaling is because they don't want to put themselves on the hook. When your highest self knows what you're capable of, it is very difficult to just be okay with being less. And so that's why that self-belief piece is so important. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But the quantum journaling I've watched it shift Kevin. If you struggle with self-belief, if you struggle with setting goals, the be grateful in advance and feel it in advance, it's a thing that I am still working on trying to explain more effectively, but it's absolute fire.
And we could, again, we've used the studio as an example for a lot of different things, but I was writing and imagining this studio before it was a thing, right? We literally found a picture. After we imagined it, we made it look exactly like the picture. I would say, honestly, better than the picture. But that started out with quantum journaling. And this is no BS, no BS. I was literally writing down, I have the best relationship 4 or 5 months before Taryn and I started talking. I was writing down that I had high-ticket clients a year before I had high-ticket clients, right? Like, everything that I wrote down is coming true in some way, shape, or form. Again, it takes time. It's not going to be immediate, but nothing is immediate. Nothing worth having is immediate.
Right. And I also want to encourage a couple things. Number one, if you have any questions, please interrupt us at this point. I'm going to keep checking in with that. If there are any questions, please put them in the chat. You can do them anonymous to Amy, and she'll speak them. Or you can do them not anonymous to Amy, or you can just speak them and unmute your mic. The other thing that I want to say, so all of us at this point have manifested something. I want you to think about something that you imagined when you were in high school. Okay? You probably imagined having your own apartment, having an intimate relationship. You probably imagined being intimate in general. I remember when I was in 7th grade, I had never made out with anyone before, and I wanted to do that. It's the same thing. I imagined what that would be like, and then I went and took action to make that happen. And that's what everything is. Weird example, but it's true. Everything starts in your imagination. And I think the other thing I want to say before we move on to the next one here is, if you are watching Netflix, for example, Harry Potter is a great example. If you're reading Harry Potter, that actually forces you to flex your imagination. If you've read Harry Potter and never seen the movies, you have to imagine it, but when you've seen the movies, it's all given to you. So in the PMES system, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and I don't want this to get too woo-woo, but I do want to explain not to get stuck in mental and emotional. One of the things that I often tell my clients is how often, I ask them this question, how often is what you know you should do, mental, is different than what you feel like doing? I know I should go to the gym. I don't feel like going. Which one do you choose? Okay? That's getting stuck. The bridge between I know I should go, but I don't feel like going. If you don't go, you're stuck. You're stuck in ME. And I know why. Because we're not flexing our imagination and we're not in a culture that requires action. Like Amazon, one click, it comes to your door. We're increasingly getting stuck in M&E because we're living in M&E. When you're watching your favorite show, you are simulating achievement. Most shows, most video games are simulating achievement. So it's really important that you get outside of that and you read more books that are fictional and you take more action and you go live in the real world, go do real world things. Because if your P physical is low or your S spiritual is low, you're not going to be able to manifest.
It's got low P.
Yeah.
You're up.
Oh, I am?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Which one do I want to choose? This is kind of cool. Man.
I know. They're not numbered, so we can just kind of freestyle it.
I know which one.
We might take this thing right off the rails.
We might. What do we got? 39 minutes? Oh, we're good. Okay, extreme ownership. The reason why I'm choosing this one is not just because it's in the center on the whiteboard thing that we've got going on here, but it's because it should be in the center. It's appropriately placed because without this, you're not going to be able to manifest. You're not going to be able to leverage the law of attraction. So what do I mean by extreme ownership? Everything that you've attracted into your life up to this point, even if it wasn't your fault, is your responsibility. Okay, I've talked about this a lot, but the person that you are right now is attracting into your life and repelling other things out of your life. So the example that I use with extreme ownership is, okay, every time I drink at a wedding, you've heard me talk about this, I regret it. Why is it that I still do it then? So extreme ownership. Okay, Alan, you know that every time you go to a wedding, you end up drinking and then you end up hungover and then you end up less productive and then you end up regretting it. Okay? Think about it this way. From the moment I started quitting drinking, and it's took me 5 years to try to quit drinking. At this point, I'm at like 550 days, which is so cool. But a lot of my old relationships filtered out of my life. And we're going to talk about filters and magnets shortly. But a lot of my persons, places, things, and ideas used to revolve around drinking because drinking was the core value. So the moment that I leaned into my own truth, again, going back to lesson 1, is the moment of not drinking and wanting to be sober, is the moment that other people who like drinking don't want to hang out with me as much. Not because they're bad or I'm bad, but because it's not a core value. We're not going to do that together anymore. Whereas when I went all in on fitness, all of a sudden people like Kevin notice that I'm into fitness and then we go to the gym together. That's the law of attraction. And honestly, it's my fault if people who are into drinking are attracted to me because I keep showing drinking. If I'm in the gym on a Saturday night and Kevin thinks that's badass, I'm going to attract the people like Kevin. Whereas the other people on Saturday night that are at the bar, Kevin hates the bar, it's a different dynamic. So you are a mirror for everything that's showing up. If I'm super into financial mastery, other people who are into wealth creation and financial mastery are going to notice that and they're going to want to hang out with me. Okay, so extreme ownership basically says that everything I say is my responsibility. Everything I do is my responsibility. Everything that I do in response to what's done to me is also my responsibility. I have a choice in everything I say, think, do, and believe. And if you can really own that, you actually can start attracting the persons, places, things, and ideas that are going to get you to the next level, but you really do have to own that. And if you don't, and this is why, it's what it really takes. Like the law of attraction and what it really is. It's not like, oh, just think the positive thought and it'll come. No, it's think the positive thought and then get rid of the junk to actually become it. Like I had to quit drinking in order to be the man I am today. I had to, 100%. Like there's no version of me drinking regularly and being this human. There just isn't. Everything's a choice, and I had to take extreme ownership for my own junk.
And so Dave Meltzer talks about this often, and this goes hand in hand with this. He talks about clearing the corrosion. Okay, so when Alan decided that he wanted to be the best version of himself, the best speaker, the best podcaster, male, natural physique, whatever, shirt off guy, a version of him, and again, do not turn off to this. Like, stay open. A version of him was created in the universe, and now I always put it this way, now it's his job not to screw it up. Just imagine that. Imagine if you decided, I want to have whatever the result is. You know what to do to get it. Imagine if you never skipped a day, ever. It doesn't matter that it's Christmas or Thanksgiving or Halloween or a wedding or your birthday. You never skipped a day. Do you think you'd get that thing? You would, right? So what we have to do is make sure we're clearing the corrosion, the BS, the limiting beliefs, the people, the negative influences, the negative content. We have to get rid of that stuff because that's going to help us actually get to our highest self, which we're all aiming for in reality. And that's what the universe is trying to provide us. I sound woo.
It's fire, though.
Who would ever
It's
think
fire.
Jeff 1 here would be talking about the universe? Strange.
Who knew?
All right.
I do have something to add to that
No,
if you're good.
absolutely not game.
Not happening.
No, you're good.
For anyone out there who's ever been in sales or trying to influence others in a positive direction, it really does come down to kind of what Kevin just described, right? If someone has imagined in their mind's eye, I'll use your Subaru, so the WRX. You imagined having a Subaru WRX.
I did.
Okay, you emotionalized it and really wanted that, probably because you saw someone with one, right? Did you see someone with one?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll put it that way.
Did you believe you could get one?
Yes.
Okay. And then you went to a dealership that had them, and then you found the strategy. So the salesperson said, "Oh, you can actually get this for $250 a month or whatever it is."
400.
400 a month. Oh, geez. See, I don't know. And then you were like, "Oh, wow, really?" And then he decided, "I'm going to make enough money to afford this car," and then he bought it. That he manifested something in his imagination just like that. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about when he talked about clearing the corrosion. When he first imagined that Subaru, he had to then clear the corrosion. The Subaru already existed in the physical world. Again, I'm sounding woo-woo too. This is difficult.
Hang in here if you're losing us, because at one point I would have already tuned out and I would have gone and ordered pizza and streamed Parks and Rec.
Let's imagine Kevin's in his house imagining having a Subaru WRX. The one that he actually bought already existed. All he had to do was figure out how to go from A to B and get it. And so that's what I don't like about The Secret, is The Secret makes it seem like the Subaru is going to drive to him. Not true. Not true at all. But he actually had the capabilities in that moment. And by the way, if you don't, you can go learn how. He had to learn how. Oh, okay, really? I can take out a loan? Interesting. I can have that now? Okay, cool. All I have to do is make $400 extra a month? Okay, now let me figure out how to go do that. And don't sell your soul for that.
I was going to say, whatever. When you're making $13.50 an hour, don't buy a car that's going to cost you $400.
Learn the hard way.
But even to go deeper into that, and this is just more of an example, I went and test drove a used car, and when I went home, my mom said, "Why don't you just buy a new one?" Mm-hmm. So what did she do? She created a stronger S. She created a stronger belief. I had already emotionalized it. I knew the strategy. I had the money. I just needed to take action. She created a stronger belief of like, I literally said, I can do that. And she's like, yeah, you make enough money. Just go do it. Right? That helped me manifest something even greater.
And that conversation would never have even happened if he wasn't already test driving used Subarus.
Yes. Funny story. I couldn't even drive a stick, so I had the dude test drive it for me within the car when I was in the car.
Oh wow.
It wasn't.
That's embarrassing.
It wasn't my finest moment.
I'm just kidding.
All right, we good? Can we go to the next one?
Let's go to the next one.
Wait, hold on.
Yo.
There's some questions coming in.
Hammer 'em.
Perfect.
Okay. What about when society puts you in a box? I'm a female, told it's weird. I am still single. Must be me. How do you get past the negativity that society tells you should or must manifest?
Oh, that's especially when it comes to relationships. I get this question quite often because Alan and I are very, very public when it comes to our relationships. I would literally think this to yourself. There's a reason you're single, probably because you're not currently able to attract the partner that you want. You're actually doing exactly what you should be doing. You're leveling yourself up so you can attract your dream partner. Mm-hmm. People always ask me, how do I attract my dream mate? You become the person who your dream mate would fall for. Mm-hmm. So I would literally say you're doing the right thing. And this is going to be a little bit hardcore, but try not to take advice from people who don't have the results that you want. Most people don't succeed when it comes to relationships. For a lot of reasons, lack of belief, lack of personal development, lack of emotional and intellectual regulation. I would say you're doing the right thing, and you're probably trying to level up yourself so you can actually sustain the relationship of your dreams.
before I give my version of that, and that was fire, man. Strong
Appreciate
work.
that. I have grounds in my coffee. I'm really disappointed about it.
Amy, can you please repeat the question just one more time for me?
Yeah. What about when society puts you in a box? I'm a female, told it's weird, I'm still single. How do you get past the negativity that society tells you should/must manifest?
I think we're going to talk about this. It's alignment. So if a person, place, thing, or idea feels outside of alignment with your highest self, it's up to you to resist that. And the interesting thing, right, is we all feel like the pressure to be something we're not. The holidays are coming up, and whether this is right, wrong, or indifferent, usually when you're around family, their perception of you is based on the past, not based on the present. And I think that's partially because we haven't lived in our truth and or we just suppressed ourselves around them. I would say the society piece of putting you in a box, I think fortunately we're in an age where those boxes are finally starting to go away to an extent. I would say courage. Emilia and I talk often about how challenging it was for her to be in real estate as a female, and it's a male-dominated industry, and fortunately that's changing as well. But the boxes that other people try to put you in are actually, in my opinion, the tests of the universe that, like, how much courage do you have to actually stay true to yourself? And this is like something I've struggled with my whole life because I think I always just wanted to be accepted. If you have goals and dreams big enough, I think you have to realize that on some level, I need to have the courage to stay in alignment with what I truly want, regardless of what other people think. And I've told Amy this as well. I said sometimes you have to choose between being liked and being respected. I think that it's interesting. This is synchronistic. I was sending an audio to Johanna earlier today because she reached out and asked about our listeners because she's coming on the show on Wednesday to talk about social media and some other stuff. But I basically said to her that I think our listeners struggle with appeasing others because they crave love and connection so much. But what they don't realize is that by appeasing others to go get love and connection, they're actually losing love with themselves. I believe that when you stay true to who you are when it's hard, for example, me going to a wedding and then setting an intention not to drink and then staying true to it, and then next day it's 5 a.m. and I'm crushing my workout, I feel good about me. Even though everyone else who subconsciously wanted me to drink with them, I felt that pull. I felt that anxiety, that social anxiety. I think courage, I think humility of like, okay, I want love and connection, and I want to appease or oblige this other person, but I know that that's not what's best for me or for others. And the very last piece I'll say about this is that what if what's best for you and your highest self is what's best for others? I feel like we get caught in this trap of selfish versus selfless. I know I do. What if me staying true to my highest self is what's best for them? Because maybe me being sober or me staying out of this room with this other person is the light that's going to shine to inspire them to look in that mirror. And so when I wanted to be with someone like Emilia, Kevin remembers me saying, I want to be with someone more ambitious than me. And he literally said to me, like, who's more ambitious than you? And I said, I want to be the anchor. I want to be the one. I want to be the bottleneck. It came true. It literally came true. But I remember having to purposely stay out of the wrong rooms with the wrong people, like other girls that were very beautiful and such, in order to trust the fact that the right person would come, and then I could feel it. So trust your intuition, try to stay out of the wrong rooms with the wrong people to the best of your ability, and then realize that it's going to take courage to lose love in the moment, but I think you'll gain love for yourself in the long run.
Fire.
We have another question.
6 out of 10. 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10.
Go ahead.
How does consciousness versus how does conscious versus subconscious realizations factor into these thoughts? For example, when Kevin realized that he wanted a Subaru WRX, did he start seeing more WRXs on the street?
Do you want to transition?
I would love to.
Oh, you can transition. So we have this written down. It's Alan's point, and it'll play nicely into the question.
So, Amy, you're excited for this one probably. The reticular activating system. And whoever asked that question probably knows of this. So your reticular activating system how do I explain this well? Okay, we are deletion creatures. And again, I've learned, you've probably heard Tony Robbins say this, a lot of people. Right now, you could be thinking of anything. What are you placing your conscious awareness on? So right now, you could be placing your conscious awareness on your left foot and whether or not it's warm or cold. Okay? What you place your awareness on is predicated on what intentions you've set. So when Kevin set the intention to buy a Subaru WRX, all of a sudden, the person's places things and ideas that were already there were suddenly picked up on by his reticular activating system as relevant. I often tell the story about how one of my fitness coaches and dear friends, Nate Smithson, lived 3 minutes away from me for 24 years, minus when I was at college. But as soon as I decided to be my own version of the greatest natural aesthetic men's physique fitness model that I could be, all of a sudden he was in my focus. And we hit it off, and we've been friends ever since. That's kind of how the law of attraction works. I set the intention to be this person, and then the right person suddenly shows up on my radar, even though he was always there. And so hopefully that answers your question, but the reticular activating system won't work for you unless you set goals. Otherwise, it'll just focus on what you're afraid of. If you're afraid of snakes, you're going to be in the woods looking for snakes. Unless you're trying to hunt a deer, then you're going to notice a deer. It's very much hunter-gatherer version, and hopefully I explained that well.
7 out of 10.
So, not bad.
Do we have any other questions, Amy, or should we hammer?
No, but Alan, I knew that you were going to say reticular activating system as soon as I saw that question.
That's Alan's favorite thing, and that's Amy's favorite thing, too.
Yeah.
So Alan talked about the power of intention in what he just spoke about. So I'll tell you a story first. Alan and I were in the studio, literally standing here right in front of the table. We have a table right in front of the camera here. And we were talking about Dave Meltzer, fathead Alan. And we were like, hey, we haven't heard from Colleen, she's a CEO of the company? President of Sports One Marketing. We haven't heard from Colleen in a minute. I don't know when she's going to schedule our next call with Dave. Literally, email comes through at that very point in time. That second, right after we said that, the email came through. Now, you might say, well, that's a coincidence. Well, in Dave Meltzer's mind, I don't know where this originally came from, but intention plus attention equals coincidence. I'm pretty sure it's a mathematical equation.
It is.
It's over my head. But I always tell my clients this, okay? If you are a client of mine and you're looking to get more clients, whatever that means to you, I always say when you wake up in the morning, I want you to set the intention to get a client today. Why? Because you're going to pay attention to every single opportunity that comes your way, right? You might not, if you just wake up and you're like, yeah, I'd like to get some clients today, and then you just take your focus off of it, you might miss potential opportunities. But for me, for example, okay, if I set the intention tomorrow when I wake up, I really would love to help somebody grow their podcast. Okay, I want to help somebody grow their podcast. I pay attention to that throughout the day. Every single one of you who comments on my story or messages me, you are somebody who I could create a coincidence with. It's all about focus. It's all about focus. Now, you can also do it in the negative way. If you set an intention, but you don't follow it, and your intention turns to being anxious, you're going to pay attention to the things that make you anxious all day. What a coincidence. You're more anxious than you've ever been. Right? It goes both ways. But I appreciate that. Yeah. This is something that Dave has taught us a lot. A couple of these things are really, really we've adopted from Dave, but this is one of them. And it's just this weird thing of like, if you want to make more money, set the intention and then pay attention to it. It might not happen right away, but you're going to notice that you're noticing way more things and opportunities than you ever have before. And it's such a game changer. It's hard to explain almost because it seems like, well, yeah, it makes sense. But most people don't have it's easy to set an intention, right? I could set the intention to be full of energy and extremely empathetic on this. But when stuff hits the fan, when you get overwhelmed, when your day goes off the rails, it's harder to pay attention. Paying attention is a master skill. And if you can do it, you can create coincidence.
We've all had that moment where we want our car breaks down and we need a new one. And instead of fixing the car, the price of the fix is basically more than what it would be to buy a new car. And so now all of a sudden, we see cars everywhere. I remember when I first, my other Pontiac broke down, Kevin showed me Subarus, and all of a sudden I saw Subarus everywhere, Subaru Legacies in particular, and then I ended up getting one. That was me setting an intention and then paying attention. But I remember even before that, it's funny because this was when we were in downtown Boston, we met Joyce and we were seeing Dave. And I remember sitting on the side of the street heading into the place where he was having the meetup. And I remember looking around, like I'm noticing Hondas. I'm noticing all these cars. Cars are normally completely deleted for me. I don't care at all, guys. I can't even pretend to care, genuinely. But when I need a car, because the car is the tool necessary for me to manifest my goals and my dreams and to help all of you, all of a sudden, all I notice is cars, right? The problem is if you live in fear, you're mostly noticing what you're afraid of. And so you have to create desires that force you to overcome your fears. When I desired a great physique more than I wanted to drink, that's how you overcome vice. And that's why I'm such an advocate for goals. But the one thing I want to say as well about coincidence, about the math thing that Kevin said, before we move on.
Please.
Coincidence. I remember it was after a speech in Boston that you and Matt attended, and Steve Ryder, who we've had on this show, it was all the speakers had dinner that night, and Steve Ryder and I hung out later because was such a powerful mentor at that time, and he basically said, Alan, coincidence doesn't mean what people think it means. Coincidence, people think it means happenstance, like it's a roll of the dice. Not true. He said in geometry, it means there's two lines meeting at one point perfectly. I do not believe that it's a coincidence that Kevin and I ended up business partners. I believe that I had set the intention to achieve a mission, and I believe that he had set the intention to achieve his mission, which at the time was to have a Joe Rogan type of podcast.
I was like, I got to find somebody smart that I can ride their coattails to success. Here we are 4 years later.
What a coincidence. But seriously, that's a mathematical, the universe is math. And before you shut off to that, just understand that when you set an intention and then pay attention, aka place your awareness on the right things, all of a sudden the coincidence will show up and we all notice this, right? How many people look at the clock and it says 11:11? Why do you see that all the time? It's because you notice it. You probably heard, what was it recently? I had a conversation with Emilia about something, and then Kevin will talk about that same thing the next day, and then we'll end up doing an episode on it. Like, it all feels very obvious to me now, but it didn't always. I would have shut off to a lot of this at one point. So just be open to it and try to keep learning it as we go here.
I think you're up for filters and magnets.
Filters and magnets.
If you want.
I don't know if that's the one I want to go to.
That's fine.
Okay. I want to do abundance versus scarcity.
First of all, that's mine.
Is that yours?
K.A.
Okay, my bad. That's
Step
Kevin's.
off.
Okay, that's Kevin's. We'll leave that for you. We will do the pyramid of alignment. I want to give you that one. Can I have abundance versus
No.
scarcity? I'm just kidding. All right, the pyramid of alignment. So I was on a coaching call not long ago explaining this, and I had sort of the whiteboard up on Zoom. But when you are born, you have no rails. You don't know who you are. You don't know who you aspire to be. You don't have much consciousness. You're just kind of a baby. You just eat and poop and all that. And so I picture like a pyramid, okay? When you're born, the pyramid is wide at the bottom. That's your foundation. And then you build on that. I want everyone out there right now to think about a decision they made in high school with a person, place, thing, or idea that they would never do again. One decision. I have mine. Everyone's got theirs? Okay, why would you never do that thing again? Because now you are more aware of the consequences of that action, and that is not who you are. If there's one thing I know, and this is a sales thing as well, if you understand this one thing I'm about to tell you, you will have far more influence. People will do anything they can to stay consistent with who they believe they are. If you attended the Mastermind about identity with Anthony Trucks, identity is a big part of the law of attraction. If I believe I'm a podcaster and someone invites me on a podcast, I have to step up and do that. Whereas someone who doesn't consider themselves a podcaster would be like, no. And by the way, they wouldn't even get the opportunity because the world doesn't believe they're a podcaster. So this is all connected. So the pyramid of alignment is basically when you're born, you have no guardrails. You don't wake up, or you're not born, come out of the womb, and suddenly you're like, I know who I am. No, it's a journey. You go and explore, and then you figure out, no, I'm not that person. I'm not that person. I don't want to do that. I'm not doing that again. And you create these guardrails. I believe self-actualization is getting more and more and more clear on who you really are and who you aspire to be. And people who are earlier in the journey, like your younger teenage self, was willing to do things way outside of alignment. Why? Because you have to figure out, sometimes you have to do something outside of alignment to realize that it is outside of alignment. So picture a pyramid. And the interesting thing about this is, let's say 0 to 10. 10 is self-actualization, highest self. Let's say you're at 7. That's still a pyramid. I want you to take and cut that pyramid out and then make it big, blow it up. It never ends. Now you're 0 to 10 again. Personal growth never ends. This is why people in their 70s are very honed in on what they care about and what they do with their time. Because they've lived enough life to go, nope, nope, nope. Whereas when we were young, teenagers, I'll just hang out with anybody. Yeah, I'll play Twisted Metal. Yeah, I'll go do that. Yeah, I'll go do that. It's like all your friends are just geographically based. They're not based on core values or beliefs. Why? Because you don't know who you are yet.
Fire.
Thank you, brother.
Fire. All right. This next one has a lot to do with money. And this is something that I've talked to a lot of clients about, because I think a lot of people are put into this mindset without even knowing it. So I'm talking about abundance versus scarcity. Okay? Abundance basically means that you know there's more than enough of everything for everybody, especially when it comes to money. There's plenty of money. Plenty of money. Like, there's $10,000 pairs of shoes. Like, there's enough money. There's enough money. But if you're convinced that money is a scarce resource or a scarce energy, it's going to be very hard for you to attract it into your life, because you're always going to say, like, well, I could never make that kind of money. I could never do that. Okay? We got off the phone recently with a buddy of ours, AK. He was on an episode a while ago. But we were talking to him just about some behind-the-scenes stuff and some business stuff. And he was just like, yeah, I'll give you guys like some stuff. I'll give you guys some answers to some things that I was struggling with. And he's like, honestly, I want to help people. I just give people help as much as I can. And honestly, it usually comes back in various ways. He is so abundant with his knowledge, with his expertise. He's not worried about like, oh, if I tell somebody this, they're going to steal this idea and I'm not going to get credit for it. He's not even thinking about that. This is another thing that Dave Meltzer does. If you email Dave Meltzer right now and ask him for any of his books, he'll literally send them to you for free. Why? Because he is the most abundant human in the world, and he also knows being abundant is how to get remembered. You would never forget that he sent you that free book. You're more than likely going to be a fan for life of Dave, right? That's a whole nother thing. But when it comes to money, a lot of people are way more focused on saving than they are on making. And imagine if that's how you're going through your life, of like, I can't really spend this money on this coffee. Versus saying like, okay, I woke up today, I set the intention to find more clients, I paid attention to the people that were reaching out to me. What a coincidence. Now I have more money. I think saving money is amazing. But if you're only relying on that half, you're going to be living way more scarce than you would be if you were living in abundance because you knew you could make money. So that's something that I've helped shift with several of my clients, just because they're in a very money save mode, which is amazing. But you can save all the water in the world. If you don't have any more water coming in, you're going to die of thirst eventually.
I remember Emily and I hiked Wachusett Mountain, and our waters ran out, and we got lost in the woods.
Not good.
And such. It wasn't good. And I remember getting to the top of the mountain. I literally said to her, I would genuinely pay $50 for a bottle of water right now. I'm so thirsty. And we ended up finding on our way down like a Powerade machine, and it jaffed us a few times, but we ended up surviving.
A Powerade machine?
Yeah, it was all we had.
I thought you were going to say like a stream.
But that's the interesting thing. If I'm at the top of Wachusett with no water, and I'm really, really dehydrated, and it's a warm summer day, and my girlfriend's also dehydrated, that's scarcity. I'm willing to pay way more for water. But you don't want to live your life like that. We were caught in a pinch. Do you spend your whole life living in quiet desperation like Thoreau talks about? And so one thing that I do want to say about abundance versus scarcity, actually two things. One is Mufasa versus Scar. If you've ever watched The Lion King, it's one of my absolute favorite movies. Scar is scarcity. He wants to be king, but has to manipulate in order to become king. He has to lie to Simba. He has to kill Mufasa. Mufasa just is king. So power versus force. Force means I have to force this. I have to force this person to love me. I have to use guilt. Imagine you're at a trade show and you have to guilt someone. Please come to my booth. Oh, no one comes to my booth. Versus just doing awesome things at your booth. Scarcity is a neediness. Abundance is I know I'm good enough and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get better. And I know that good things will come my way as long as I earn it. And that's the key piece, as long as I earn it, right? So the last thing I'll say about abundance versus scarcity is that life is not a zero-sum game, especially with money. Okay? It's not a poker game. Someone else doesn't have to lose for you to win. Okay? If we felt that way, we wouldn't have had half the guests on this show. We would never have gone on other shows. Like if we're like, no, please don't leave us. No, it's not like that. Like when you have Gina Swire on a Mastermind, if you go and watch her content over ours, we don't care. That's great. If it's more aligned for you, please go do it. It's an abundant mentality, right? And that's how we all grow. If we were scared to have her on our Mastermind because we were afraid our listeners might leave us, we wouldn't learn self-love from Gina. We wouldn't get all that value. We wouldn't give all that value to you guys. And so where are you living in scarcity? And then look in that mirror too and say, okay, what skill sets do I not have? Because it's easy to live in abundance when you have the skills. When you have skills that are marketable, it's really easy to live in financial abundance. When your worst backup plan is $250,000, like you're going to be abundant and people are going to think you're so confident. No, it's because I know I have the skills the world needs and I'm not concerned. So I think that's actually a luxury. Abundance is a luxury based on personal development.
And the other thing too, I was going to say, and Alan kind of said it, but this is like a long-term thing. So I'm not just saying be abundant for the day. Like this is the mindset that you want to adopt. Don't be reckless, right? Don't be reckless. But like I talked about this in the Money Mastermind. There's a coffee shop that I go to that I feel for some reason, and Taryn knows because we go there and I always talk about it, but for some reason I feel unreasonably abundant. It's in like the nice town center. There's always really nice cars parked around. When I'm there, anything is possible. Like that's my abundant place. Also, again, intention plus attention equals coincidence. Every day when I wake up and I do my journaling, I write 5 or 6 words that I want that day to be like the theme for that day. So every day I write abundance, I write opportunity, I write connection, I write love, I write clarity, awareness. Every day I'm priming my mind to look for these things, to look for these opportunities. Okay, so that's another thing. Like this is a constant, consistent practice.
Fire. We have 8 minutes, and how many?
Two. I think we have
we've
2.
Done all of them except for.
Don't say it.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you have one?
I see the 2. Yeah, upper left.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So you're up.
Yeah. All right. So filters and magnets. Shout out to Dr. Nikki Starr. When she first taught us this, it's interesting because as we become more and more aware, there are certain ideas that get more merit and certain ideas that get less. And that's why as we evolve, we are trying to always re-give you the ones that had the most merit. Because we can all think back again to high school when we had a belief and it was just like, I could not have been more wrong about that thing. So as you become more and more aware and you grow, more things become obvious. And this one is absolute fire. It's become more and more obvious. And we've already talked a little bit about it. So filters and magnets. Everything you say, think, and do is literally going to filter out the wrong people and magnetize in the right people or the opposite. So let's say I did something really outside of alignment and I did something really mean to someone. Let's say you saw me be really mean to somebody, okay? And I hurt their feelings and I was a real dickhead, okay? Most likely you wouldn't respect me as much, admire me as much, and you wouldn't want to be around me as much. That's the law of attraction. You saw something inconsistent with my character, your perception of me changed, and now you're less attracted to me. You're less likely to listen to this show. Whereas if you see me open the door for an old lady at a grocery store and you witness me be super kind to her, if you value that virtue, kindness, you're going to want to listen to this show more. That's the law of attraction. Every single time you go outside of alignment with your highest self, you are literally magnetizing in the wrong people and filtering out the right people. And when you do something in alignment, like a kind act, you're going to attract the right people. And so to go back to that original question of whoever asked that earlier, I want everyone in this room to realize that every time you appease someone else and you do something you didn't really want to do, you're actually messing with your own stars. If I appease and drink, people are going to think I'm a drinker, and then they're going to be more inclined to offer me a drink. And then that's going to be harder for me to resist. I'm going to drink again, and it's going to perpetuate. We've all gone a little drift this way, and then all of a sudden we woke up, I hate my life. What happened? It was one bad decision at a time, and then all of a sudden you're in the wrong place with the wrong people. I can name one time where I was like, I can't believe I'm here right now. I don't belong here at all. Oh my God, I just got the chills talking about it. I can't believe I was there. Oh. And so I what was it? It was one bad decision after another. And then all of a sudden you wake up like, where the hell am I? What am I doing? Okay, we don't want that. We want you to stay hyper-conscious along the way.
Hashtag hyper-conscious. Also, this is a very important thing when it comes to starting a new relationship. Why? I have had a lot of people that I've talked to who, think of it this way. Just because it magnetizes in doesn't necessarily mean it's right. Okay? So I know some people who have started relationships when they were kind of at a dip in their life. And as they climb out of that dip, they start to realize that their partner is kind of filtering out. Why? Because you attracted this person when you weren't vibrating at your normal level. And then you've convinced yourself that this is the person for you. So you almost don't live in your truth, because if you do, you'll filter out that person. Like this is a deep one, and it's probably somewhat hard to understand, but Alan and I have seen this so many times. So many times. We talk a lot, and we talk today. We did an episode on the darker side of success and this journey. One of the things we talk about a lot is outgrowing people. When we say we're outgrowing people, what does that mean? That means they are getting filtered out because maybe their beliefs or their actions or their behaviors or their goals or whatever it is, core values, maybe they're not the same. But when you filter people out, it creates room for you to magnetize people that are a better fit in. And again, this is painful, and it's been a lot for us for sure. But we wouldn't have the mentors if we weren't willing to cut ties with people who should filter out. That's a giant mistake that people make. They catch people in the filter when they really should be filtered out if they want to be the greatest versions of themselves. And I know it's hard when it's personal because there's people involved, and I know it probably sounds too easy when I say it like that, and I don't mean it like that. But at the end of the day, you know, you filter out behaviors. You don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't party because you're trying to get to your goals. The people in your life are just as important, if not more.
There's a question.
Hammer it.
And then I have a question too.
Hammer it.
Where is that sacredity mind? Oh, sorry. Oh my gosh, I can't read today. Where is that scarcity mindset coming from? Pride, competition, greed, etc.
It's coming from fear.
Yeah.
It's coming from fear and ego, most likely. Some version of fear that has decided you're not enough, so there is not enough of anything. You're not talented enough. Like, imagine this. Alan versus me. When we started this journey, Alan had a pretty heavy sales background. I had no sales. When it comes to sales, Alan, I remember we were calling colleges. He's like, dude, I'll do it right now. I'll cold call this college and I'm going to get us a speech. They didn't answer the phone. He left a message. But for me, he was so abundant around his ability to make money. I was so scarce because I was afraid. It wasn't a skill set that I had. I didn't feel competent. So I would say it's some form of resistance created by fear or lack, is what I would say.
Strong answer, man.
I appreciate it.
Fear. It really is false expectations appearing real. Fear is scarcity. If you're in a dark alley in New York City, I want you to be afraid because that's dangerous. If you're behind the wheel of your car, I think it's humble and good to be afraid because statistically you're more likely to die in a car than almost anything else. So some fear will keep you alive. Scarcity will keep you alive. If you're afraid of everything, you're not going to take much chances. You will be very safe, most likely. But it's not going to help you thrive. And so it's all rooted in fear. Greed is fear of not having enough. Gluttony, of overeating, is fear of not having enough food. And that's all in our biology, by the way. All of the 7 deadly sins are based in fear of not enoughness. So, yeah, I'm just going to second what Kevin said.
And real quick, Amy, before you ask yours, there is a time to be scarce. Like, if you're down to your last dollar, I wouldn't necessarily donate it. I would try to find a way to make more. So there are times where you probably should be a little bit more scarce than people say. So I won't blanket statement and say, you're poor. It is what it is. Be more abundant. I think it's a practice, and it's far easier to be abundant when you have the results than it is to be when you don't. Yeah. So I would say find a place where you can be abundant. It's going to be very hard for you to feel good if the floor beneath you is collapsing. It's very hard to be abundant if you don't think you're going to survive. So I want to make sure that's known as well.
Fire.
Go ahead, Amy.
Okay. What are you both trying to attract into your lives right now?
Oh, money. I'm very happy with the person I become. I'm very happy with when it comes to health, wealth, and love, as we say, we help you get to the next level of your life, love, health, and wealth. My love is amazing, Taryn. I'm so in love with you. I'm going to marry you. We're going to have kids. That's set. When it comes to my body and my physical well-being, I love that. I'm crushing the gym. That's all great. The podcast, everything else. Right now, we've worked so hard on the back end of the business that it's time to really grow the finances, and not just for me so I can help my bank account, but the more money we make, and money is energy, the more energy that we bring in with the currency of money, the more people we can help, because we'll be able to spread our resources more.
And grow. We'll be able to grow. Business can't grow without cash flow. I'll be super fast because we're out of time.
10 seconds.
10 seconds. What am I trying to attract into my life? I will admit that I'm afraid of... I'm trying to get rid of my fear of being unloved for my intensity, and I've been leaning a lot more into my mathematical business mind, my engineer mind, my strategy mind. I think that I've realized that my intelligence has not always been used to connect me with others. I think sometimes it made me feel disconnected, and that's not me being... I'm also afraid of my ego. I'm afraid of, once I lean into my own, for lack of better phrasing, greatness, I'm afraid to be arrogant. And so I'm trying to get rid of all that scarcity and really lean into abundance. And I think that coincides well with what Kevin's talking about regarding money. I did used to make a ridiculous amount of money, and I was on a trajectory to be a multimillionaire. And I want to go back on that trajectory, because back then I didn't like who I became, and now I'm proud of who I've become, and I think I'm afraid to lose that. So I'm trying to attract the right clients, the right opportunities, the right people. I'm trying to attract the right persons, places, things, and ideas into my life that will help us be better men, but also abundant financially. And that's my answer.
I love that. Get your fat head up.
Oh.
Taryn just texted me and asked if the fat heads are going to be making an appearance. Here they are. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got to go because we're actually running a minute over. Alan and I are both doing coaching. So if you're looking to start, monetize, grow your podcast, any of that stuff, I have weekly coaching. Alan is doing business coaching if you're an early entrepreneur looking to grow your business. We do not have fans. We have family. Amy, thank you for everything. We love you, and thank you to everybody that came and supported our 500 episode get together and remote and the video and got us the fatheads.
Thank you so much for asking awesome questions. Thank you, Amy, again for everything.
Love you.
Talk to you soon.